Okay, so we've talked about how the changes to family structure have underpinned major institutional development, changing roles of women, changes to family structure, and we've talked about how intersectionality describes the systems that evolved around here and how this knowledge base shaped these systems, and we've talked about how equality legislation is the top line that everybody sees, and the rest of it nobody ever thinks about. So the question is, how on earth have we got mature systems that have developed over a long time and yet nobody knows what they do? And now we're going to talk about the economics of care. So when you are discussing the care economy, you are discussing the foundation of the economy, how it has always reproduced. Until the end of marriage as a system of ownership and subordination, this was labour and responsibilities that were taken care of within that, and indeed a lot of the shit that single parents get, a lot of the fears about the changing family structure as it was happening, a lot of the fears from very, impressive, academics, were about what happens if when women are not owned anymore, this labour does not get done. And this labour was always going to get done. And it will always be done, because this is the most reliable labour known to man, and this labour has never really failed. So, the care economy crosses unpaid and paid spheres. It concerns labour that has always been done in unpaid spheres. So it concerns things like elder care. So we're talking primarily childcare and elder care. We say they're the two main places. But also you've got groups of other people who require care during their adult life, and social care is a whole complex evolution by itself, which I'm not going to discuss. So, it crosses unpaid and paid spheres, and the tangible, paid and publicly provided parts of this economy, the bits provided by market providers, by public bodies, they cannot, period, replicate kinship relations, and they can only provide services which will supplement existing kinship relations. Now this is the fact for people like me who come from the looked after system. We have to accept that throughout our lifespan, our entire lifespan, our outcomes are much poorer than other people. Now, family is one of those things people don't want to examine because it means examining identity, and none of us want to do that. But what Thomas Piketty is getting closer to seeing is that actually this family relationship is crucial to understanding how our economy functions. So on a macro level, care is a key contributor and a fundamental part of economic and labour market function. On a micro level, provision of these systems is now fundamental to the participation of women who disproportionately still do this labour. Now, here are the main principles. Care labour cannot be abdicated. It can only be outsourced. It has to be delivered consistently and constantly. There is no time. You don't switch a baby off. You don't switch an old person off. They need that care, and anybody who's worked in safeguarding or in social care or any of these knows what happens and why it is that these systems are developed by crisis. And what happens is you have a change that's coming up and everybody says, oh, we won't even think about it, we'll kick to it. And people don't think it's important because it's about this powerless little person, and you see when that labour's not being delivered, rapidly it becomes crises that are linked to political responsibility. These systems are always linked to political responsibility. They have evolved entirely through crisis. Now we're going to talk about the establishment of the welfare state later on, but what you have to understand is that the care economy and these systems evolved in kind of secondary institutions. So institutions were established as part of the welfare state, and then because they were doing things like, and they were joined together, all of a sudden other changes started to happen, and then between these systems and duties, which are mainly held by your local authority, who are the main kind of, they underwrite kind of legal responsibility for the care economy on behalf of the Crown, these systems have continued to evolve, and the knowledge within them has continued to evolve. Within those, our safeguarding systems have had to evolve, because what we've had to develop an understanding of is power dynamics. And we've had to, especially, and if you look at the map of where safeguarding legislation has evolved, it's around care and relationships. It's within families, it's within intimate relationships, it's within caring relationships. And it's here that we've had to develop intersectionality, and we've had to develop that understanding of what happens when you kind of reduce people to objects, and the power of intervention. We've had to learn here about the power of state intervention. So for instance, at the very core of our responsibilities for looked after children is an understanding that state intervention is harmful in of itself at all times. Everything the state does is harmful. This is not because it's some Hayekian bloody neoliberal fantasy. This is because we had to learn through harm to children. We had to learn from children being abused and not being believed. And I'm going to give you kind of a story which I don't really like sharing this stuff, which is why I don't like doing these videos. I'm sorry, you're not supposed to say that either, am I? Well, in about 2004 or 5, I think, I was a student social worker, and I placed a girl that I was working with in a mother and baby home. I won't say which one because I can't, because publicly. Now, I could have lost my placement and I could have been chucked off my social work course for even going near this place, because when this place came up, it was a mother and baby home that my mother had been in with me as a baby. And my mother had been brutalised by this place. Like, there's no doubt about it. She had been, you know, treated very, very badly, and those cycles were played out through my childhood. And this place came up on a list of prospective placements for a young person who I was very fond of, actually. And I didn't intend to place this girl there. I just wanted to see it. So I went, and the manager knew that I was, she knew things weren't right. But this home was lovely. And I said, I'm really sorry. I said, I shouldn't have come. I said, but actually I was a baby here. And the manager apologised to me. Straight up. She apologised to me, she apologised to my mother. And she knew from my age when that had been. And so these are really painful lessons. And she said to me, you know that we're different now, we don't do that. And so because we've had these lessons, my grandmother's experience of the systems that took her children were not good. They brutalised her. My mother's experience of the system was not good and turned out these brutalised women. But because we had learned these things, the system that took care of me actually protected me and turned out a rather together kind of young woman. And it's this learning that's contained within these systems. And it's happened through crisis, and those crises are marked out in these systems. It's not, you know, policymakers' intent, it's crisis after crisis. It's dead bodies, it's children who have been hurt, it's institutions where abuse has happened. And this learning is the baseline of the rule of law. And we know this. We know that state intervention is harmful. We know this labour can't be abdicated. We know the state can't do this. We know the state can't replicate this. We know our limitations on this, and we have learned this over a very long time. And we are now at the point where we have to consolidate that learning, and part of consolidating that learning is understanding how all these systems link together. And what it's turned out since 2010 is that this learning never permeated at policy-making level. And currently you have people who know this stuff being called TERF because they understand the evolution of these systems. Now, you can see a little bit. So when you speak to women who have worked in the care